Alright guys, so we are going to go through, this is going to be our retest. I'm going to work a most missed question, and then a test question will follow. You need to show all the work that I have on my most missed question on your paper. And when you're finished, you'll turn your paper into your teacher and make sure you submit your Edpuzzle. Most missed number 1. Josh is saving money to buy a computer. He put the initial amount he has saved into a jar. Each month, he puts an additional amount of money into the jar. The table shows the linear relationship between the number of months Josh has added money to the jar X and the total amount of money in the jar Y. Which statement is true? The initial amount Josh puts in the jar was $225. The initial amount Josh puts in the jar was $75. The amount of money Josh adds to the jar each month is $45. The amount of money Josh adds to the jar each month is $60. So some keywords in my answer choices: initial amount, that is talking about my y-intercept. And remember, for our y-intercept, x has to be 0, and then it's that y value. So we need to put 0 in our table for our initial amount. And it's saying for C and D, the amount he adds to the jar each month. So that word each tells me that I'm looking for my slope. And on a table, that's going to be change in y over change in x. So let's go ahead and find that slope first. So to go from 5 to 7, I added 2. Okay, now I need to see how we got from 225 to 285. And one way I can do that is I can take 285 and subtract 225. So 225 plus 60 gives me 285. So I'm going to put a plus sign there. So if I'm going to find my slope, I need my change in y over my change in x. My y's changed by plus 60. My x's changed by plus 2. And if I simplify 60 divided by 2, that gives me 30. But C says 45 and D says 60. So it's not C or D. So now I'm going to look for my initial amount, or my y-intercept. And to do that, I'm going to need to work backwards, because if this was a number line, 0 would be here. And when we work backwards, we're going to do the opposite operation, okay? I'm going to redraw my table here to give me some room. I'm not sure how far back we're going to need to go, but 5, 225. And like I said, we're going to go backwards. So instead of adding 2, I'm going to subtract 2. 5 minus 2 is 3. On the y side, instead of adding 60, I'm going to subtract 60. 225 minus 60. That gives me 165. Still not at 0, so I'm going to go again. Minus 2. 3 minus 2 is 1. 165. And I'm going to do minus 60 again. That gives me 105. Now, I'm almost to 0, but I only need to go back 1. I only need to subtract 1. 1 is half of 2. So I'm going to subtract, but I'm only going to subtract half of 60, which is 30. So 105 minus 30 gives me 75. So for this problem, my y-intercept, or my initial amount, is 75, which means we should have picked answer choice B. Make sure you have all this work written down. Now go ahead and work retest question number 1. All right, most missed number 2. Ricardo can complete 4 laps around a track in 10 minutes. Create a graph that has a slope that represents the number of laps Ricardo can run per minute. Select 2 points on the coordinate grid that will connect the point. A line will connect the points. My x is my time. My laps is my y. So it tells me 10 minutes. 10 minutes can do 4 laps. If I split that in half, half of 10 is 5, half of 4 is 2. Okay. And if I look at my graph, I can go over to 5, up to 2, and then I can go over to 10, up to 4, and it would have created a line for me with those 2 points. All right. So when you get a problem like this, make a table and you can plot the points on the table. Make sure you have this written down. Now you're going to work retest question number 2. Most miss number 3. The graph of the linear function is shown on the coordinate grid. What are the slope and y-intercept of the function? Enter the numbers in the boxes provided. All right, so my slope on a graph is rise over run. And it did give me 2 coordinates on this one, so I'm actually going to use those. I'm not going to make any up. I'm going to use what it gave me. All right, so 1, 2, and we went up, so that's a positive 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we went to the right, so that's a positive 8. So my rise is plus 2. My run is plus 8. Now for my slope, if I wanted to put that fraction in, this is my fraction button right here. I can click that button and the fraction sign will pop up there. So for the answer, we could have done 2 over 8, 1 over 4, or 0.25. Any one of those answers would have worked to give us our slope. Now for the y-intercept, on a graph, the y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis. So here's my y-axis. And as I look for my graph, it crosses right here. And that is the coordinate 0, -2. So we should have 0, -2 in there. And this here, this minus sign is our negative. Okay. Make sure you have all that work. Now work retest question number 3. All right, most miss number 4. Claire earns the same pay for each day she works at her new job. She deposits a weekly paycheck into her savings account. What is the slope and the y-intercept of the table? All right, so slope on a table is going to be change in y over change in x. So when I look at my table, to go from 5 to 10, we added 5. And from 130 to 250, I'm going to work backwards, and I'm going to do 250 minus 130. That tells me that I added 120. So my change in y is going to be the account balance, so plus 120. My number of work days will be plus 5. And when I simplify 120 divided by 5, that gives me 24. And then I need to do my y-intercept. And remember, our y-intercept is when 0 is in my x. So I have to work backwards. So instead of adding 5, I would subtract 5. Instead of adding 120, I would subtract 120. 130 minus 120 gives me 10. So my y-intercept is going to be 10. And we need to remember that slope is the letter M. And y-intercept is the letter B. So when I know that slope is 24, M equals 24, B equals 10. We should have picked A as our answer there. Make sure you have all this work done, and then you're going to work retest question number 4. Make sure you have work on all the questions. Go ahead and submit your Edpuzzle when you're finished and turn your retest paper into your teacher.